Welcome, everyone, to today's InOrbit webinar. My name is Jeff Chapman. I'm the Content Marketing Manager here at InOrbit. And today, you are joining us for a discussion, developers. That's right, InOrbit has seen a lot of changes recently. We've seen some major platform updates, including the launch of our developer portal. So part of today's discussion will be an exploration of the platform as it is now, but there's also a larger conversation at play that we'll be looking at today. Why we feel our continued commitment to RobOps is the strongest way to bolster the entire sector, and the launch of our ecosystem and how we're partnering with new folks. If you're new to InOrbit, thank you again so much for joining us. So we offer a secure, hardware agnostic, cloud-based robot management platform. Our goal is to help robot manufacturers and their operators develop, deploy, and orchestrate smart robots at a global scale. And at the core of what we do is a commitment to effective RobOps, or robot operations. Certainly critical when you're looking at scaling any kind of automation. I have a few quick housekeeping notes for you today. This webinar will be 30 minutes long. We will be recording it, so after the fact, if any of the folks or your colleagues may have not been able to join us, we'll be able to share it with them. We will be taking questions at the end as well. So if you have any questions as we proceed with today's webinar, please feel free to type them into the chat. And I think that's about all. Right now, I would love to introduce our hosts for today's webinar. The InOrbit founders, please welcome CEO Florian Pestoni and our CTO Julian Cerruti. Guys?
Thank you so much, Jeff. So today, we're going to go into a lot of the technical details of our platform. I'll let Julian do most of the talking since he's our CTO and he knows what he's talking about. But let me just make a quick intro in terms of like why we're here, what motivates us. So our goal is to...
Florian, can I just pop right on quickly? I'm not seeing you on camera.
Yeah, I've turned it on, but for some reason it's not liking it. So I'll be in secret mode today.
Okay.
I'll be incognito. So again, I think our goal is to maximize the potential of every robot. We think that a underutilized robot is a terrible thing. So we really try to work with companies to help accelerate time to market for the robots, and just basically so they can focus on what they do best, and we'll take care of some of the common infrastructure. Next slide, Julian. Thank you. So a little bit about what you're about to see, just to give you a little bit of context. So this is a very simplistic view of our architecture. It all starts with running an agent on the robots or on the edge as well. And this allows us to do data collection and analysis. And then we manage the connectivity with the cloud. It's a fully managed hosted service, multi-cloud. So again, we'll cover all of the infrastructure complexities. And then once the data is aggregated and available, you can access it through APIs, which is where we're going to spend a lot of our time today. To help you build applications on top of this data. And then you can also offer a platform for end users that's based on configurable dashboards. So today we're going to focus more on the left side, the agent side, and the API side. And in terms of like what you can do with our platform, we like to say we focus on the 4 O's. And basically, it starts with getting end-to-end visibility, and then managing that, taking action, orchestrating across different types of robots if necessary, and then ultimately optimizing the end-to-end process. And we have a lot of functionality on our platform. I'm not going to go through all of that today. You can find out more on our website at inorbit.ai. Today, we're going to focus on that first line item on the developer portal. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Julian.
Thanks, Florian. I hope my audio is fine today too. I'm going to go right away and step into the developer portal. The idea is to give you a quick tour, and I'm not going to use slides. Instead, I'm going to pop out of this, ideally, if it wants to, and walk you through what we have. It's a large menu, so I'll be going a little bit fast, but hopefully we can follow up later with the questions and more in-depth discussions. The developer portal, it's our entry point for our developer experience, with a focus specifically on integration of the small parts that are necessary and useful of our product into existing business applications in the broader scheme of things. It includes the developer portal itself, which has a lot of content. It's and pointers to everything else where you can find more detailed information. And it's aimed at several different use cases, ranging from application developers or systems integrators who are incorporating robotics into business applications functions. Also, robotics developers who are integrating robotics software into the ecosystem, connecting robotics data and actions, and extending the capabilities of the platform, as well as ecosystem partners, which provide really cool value-added capabilities through the platform itself. We are also part of this includes also, of course, a development console where you can go in and create keys or configure data, like, and do all the setup of your specific account. And also, we just launched our GitHub organization page, which includes several SDKs, code samples, and even some open source contributions that we're hoping to help advance this field. Another part that is, I think, important for this experience, even though not technically part of the developer portal, it's the product documentation, which we continue to increase and improve over time, and includes advanced topics such as like tailoring and configuration. And this, of course, works hand in hand with the rest of the platform functions. I'm going to dive first in the now going into a little bit of detail on how exactly what could you do with this and how, or just to at least give an overview. I'm going to start from the point of view of a full stack developer. By the way, just a small disclaimer, even though we have several adopters of different kinds using these APIs, I'm going to come up with a completely made up user story, so none of what you hear represents a specific customer, and this is specifically to avoid sharing confidential information from our customers. So suppose you are a full stack engineer at a hospital, and you need to integrate some robotic specific functions into your hospital's management system to provide visibility to your to the hospital staff, for the robotics coworkers, and also allow the ability to get some optimization of the process through understanding this information, and also make it possible to adapt to the changing conditions and make this available to the hospital staff. Let's suppose, for example, that you have an in-room application where nurses can actually summon some of the robots. We can think of which robots we're talking about. We could say it's very common in hospital nowadays to have robots that take care of both planned and on-demand delivery of supplies, or as well as cleaning. So let's say that we want to make it possible to tell whether there is any available robot handy to call in a robot room. We could use the REST API, for example, the attributes API, to get in real-time information from the robots that are on this floor about whether they are they online, are they busy doing something else, are they capable of handling a task. Or we can also use the localization API to do a post query and understand which is the closest robot, so that we can provide that in our application to our customers. But probably more interesting, if we want to have the ability for a nurse to actually call for an on-demand delivery or for our hospital's management system to do a scheduled request, we could use the Actions API to send a request to directly instruct the robot to go to a particular location to start a pickup movement. I'm not going to go through the details. I suppose at this point you get the point. And the only things I would mention is with the Missions API, we can or audit logs. We can later also get access to all the information about what has been happening over time with this, with all these different functions to understand where there is room for improvement over time on our operations. But moving on to a slightly different thing, some other actions or in some other occasions, it's actually more important to get notified when a particular problem happens instead of using like a traditional REST API. Let's say that we have delivery robot has been waiting for an aisle to be cleared for 10 minutes, where it normally should take 5 minutes. Then at that point, we can get a notification through our webhook interface. I'm going to show some documentation here, and and from here we can get notified into our business application to start a different escalation procedure, dispatch something else, even including a human to be able to deal with this situation. Incident Management API also offers some off-the-shelf integration with existing incident management systems, such as Opsgenie and PagerDuty, to set up a larger scale incident management practice. We're providing here, putting together code samples. Like here, for example, for the webhook API, we have a code sample that allows receiving messages directly from the webhook API and transmitting it directly to transmitting it to a Google Chat interface. And the main idea of this is as already functioning sample, so that you can get running and understand how to use the application and get a solid starting point from this. Finally, from this point of view of how to use robotics technology into our applications, the other thing that I wanted to mention is embeds. This is useful to get a very quickly up and running with client-side integration only. Let's imagine, like using this same example, in the nurse room, we have an application with overall floor status of everything else, and we want to add the ability to track where the robots are and provide some functions. Then we could just go to our developer console directly and create a dashboard directly that it can later be embedded into an application like you can see here. As I forgot to mention, like here, for example, we have this particular dashboard. Sorry, I think the webinar software is getting in the way. And we can simply get an embed code that we can use in our application, protected with our API key, to give specific permissions to this. So, and in this way, we can use we can create an user interface that it's part of our application, but just reuse one UI component so that we don't need to create everything. Jumping to the other side of things, we also provide a lot of. Yes, sorry.
Just a quick comment here from the bleachers. So what you've been discussing could be applied by somebody without necessarily knowing a lot about robots, right? So they're really working on a kind of like business application, in this case, a hospital dispatch. So who do you envision would be the people taking advantage of that?
Thank you. That's a good question. We do not only envision, but we do have a lot of interaction with. I call them full stack developers. They're normally people that are in charge of creating the business applications for different companies, and we get inbound questions from them. Sometimes they are part of an IoT department. Sometimes they are just systems. Sometimes there are systems integrators that are bringing robotics technology into the applications, and sometimes even we have people that develop applications, like our ecosystem partners who develop applications on top of the robotics technology. But the main goal of these APIs, and the reason I started here, is to have InOrbit be a tool that helps dealing with robotics type of data and technology without having to become an expert on how do you connect with robots, how do you deal with ROS, what are the different data structures that are used here, and how do you deal with that, and instead focus on the actual business application while staying in control of the business application and the experience itself, instead of having to jump to a completely different experience.
So I guess I would summarize it. You don't need a PhD in robotics to do something like this. You're abstracted out from the gory technical details of a robot, right?
Correct. That's exactly the idea.
Awesome. Thank you.
And thanks for helping clarify. But now I want to jump next to the people who actually do have a PhD in robotics, or maybe not a PhD, but work in robotics. They're developing robotics applications, and they want to integrate InOrbit, either to do something either to provide value to the robotics development itself, because we can do that, or to help integrate into a broader system. For that, we have our robot SDKs, or our robot integration tools, which include several things. I would say, first of all, I'll go back to what you mentioned before in the architecture chart. With everything for us starts with an agent. The InOrbit agent is a small but critical component that runs on the robot and deals with all the intricacies of working with robot data, this particular type of machines that include an enormous amount of information to deal with and are always on wheels and sometimes disconnected or don't have reliable sources of power or connectivity. The agent deals with the complexity of these connectivities, with security, context-aware throttling and downsampling of data, bit bidirectionality, safety, latency awareness, all of that. We have an off-the-shelf. Let me see, where do we have the pointers for this? I think it's here. We have an off-the-shelf integration. We've already successfully integrated with more than 50 types of different types of robots and growing. And for this, we provide a quick installer that can be used from the developer console to get started in less than a minute for development purposes, mostly to set up and connect a robot to your InOrbit account and be able to use it like we discussed before. But we also provide more advanced settings like Debian-based installation and advanced settings configuration to tailor the behavior of the agent depending on the particular setup. And furthermore, to bring additional control over which information is published, we also provide, let me see, it's here, an open source package that allows defining which specific fields and custom data, in this case using ROS, is mapped and provided to InOrbit. So all of this has been used by many of our adopters to integrate their ROS-based robots, ROS1 and ROS2, into our ecosystem. But of course, there are also some cases in which people don't use ROS. They've developed their own robot framework for different reasons, and we also support that use case. In particular, we still provide also an agent, a stripped down version of the agent to take care of these common needs, and provide a common language that allows providing bidirectional information from the custom robot software to InOrbit. To make this a little easier, since most of the robot software is built in C++, we provide a header-only C++ interface that can be dropped into the robotics framework with a minimal compilation pain, and allows some structured way of providing the information in a way that it's compatible with the rest of the system. We've already have a few adopters using this and have been able to integrate with the robot software in a matter of a couple of days only. We've also found some cases, particularly with I would say more legacy robotics bases, that where installing agent software on the robot it's either not possible or not desired for some reason. So for this use case, we provide the Edge SDK, which allows publishing robot information on behalf of a robot or a fleet of robots altogether. The most common use case for this is to run it on the on-premise fleet manager software from a robotics vendor and use it to connect to the cloud. Of course, in this case, part of the benefits of using the agent are lost, but being normally running on an on-premise fixed install machine, then this doesn't pose a particular issue. We have for this also, we provide an SDK based on we provide a node npm package that can be used to get started, make a connection, and we also provide code samples that are also part of our GitHub repo to be able to get started with a sample that already works. And here just a show of what it looks like. You can see that it's real, it exists. Finally, the last thing that I wanted to comment on this area, which is something up and coming, is the area of robot interoperability. We recently gave a talk in ROS World about this. I'm hoping and waiting for that to be available for download, and we'll share it. But basically, this is they are early. It's in early days. These standards are just starting to be created. The main idea here is that if a robot manufacturer creates a robot that is compatible with the standard, that can be connected to the platform without the need of any code or any agent or anything, just a configuration only. InOrbit already supports two of the two most popular standards, which are the Mass Robotics Interoperability, AMR Interoperability Standard, and BDA 5050. And it can be done directly from the InOrbit management console. Just enable the compatibility. You get the URL for the standard. They just configure the robot with the standard, and the robot is connected. Just to finish on this area, two things I want to say is we're also trying to provide source code to help with the adoption of these platforms. You will find in our GitHub repository. Let me just have it here. For example, this AMR interop standard, where we published a package that makes it easy to connect any ROS2 based robots using configuration only. And also for the BDA 5050 part, we provide a sample here, an example use of our Edge SDK to implement BDA 5050 with doubles, both as a way to support BDA 5050, but also as a working sample of how to use the Edge SDK to support a fleet management platform. So that can be used also as a starting point to support any other standard. The last thing I wanted to mention, and I don't have a lot to point to here, is that much of this API and SDK, which we have been working on for a long time, we are just only now putting all this together, it's also heavily used by our ecosystem partners, which is something, it's not the developer portal, but it's something that has let us grow this a little bit, and we announced recently too. And it allows us to understand how can we make our platform more easier to extend, and also include more value to this. One or two examples that I can mention here. One is our partners at Next Generation Robotics who develop smart fleet management solutions and can connect with different WMS systems can provide intelligent routing of robots to make the optimal use of the different routes, and they're being used in our REST APIs to understand, to be able to track where robots are and also affect the routes that the robots are doing. And in another case, we'll be working with Digital Keystones, who are absolute experts on video technology, to provide advanced video streaming, recording, and AI using our full stack integration, which goes from components that go on the cloud, components that go on the client side, and even components that extend our agent through different variants to be able to facilitate the integration of video on the robot side as well. So we hope to continue extending more. Like, part of this, also the reason of bringing all this together is to find out where are our biggest open spots. With this, I'll pass it back to you, Florian.
Wow, I kind of feel like I got an honorary PhD just listening to you. So I think this is fantastic. There's so much stuff here. I want to spend just like a couple of minutes. I'll come back to what you mentioned about the ecosystem, but if you go to the next slide, one of the things I wanted to mention is that all of this, or most of what you saw today, is free. So for companies that are trying to get started, for example, connecting the robot to the cloud, we offer our platform of what we call the free edition. And to be clear, it's free forever, unlimited robots. This is not one of those kind of like limited time trials. There are no hidden fees. We'll basically pay for your cloud infrastructure ourselves. And our motivation there is to really advance the state of robotics as a whole. The developer portal is part of that. So anything you can do on the free edition by clicking on stuff, you can also get access to through our APIs and SDKs, as Julian was mentioning. Some customers may have more advanced needs. So we do offer our standard edition, which is paid, and you can add additional functionality. All of this is available for you to check out at our pricing page on our website. And then with much larger enterprise companies that have different types of need, for example, in terms of like more advanced security, a different level of support, we can also work with them. But if you go to the next slide, I wanted to touch a little bit more broadly on this idea of the ecosystem. Julian already mentioned a couple of our partners. Several others we've been working with, like Meili Robotics in Denmark, 634.ai in Israel, and a number of both services and technology partners that we're working with are really building on top of our platform, and together we can offer a much more complete solution, much more complete than what any one company can do on its own. And I think what's exciting about that is that the robotic space, as it's maturing, is really becoming this ecosystem of robotics companies and various software and technology companies working together. We've also been working with Qualcomm. So if you get a Qualcomm RB5, which is their latest generation hardware, it already works with InOrbit. So there's even less work to do over there. And we've been demonstrating some of this at various trade shows. I know we're almost on time, and I think Jeff will get on my case if I keep talking. So why don't I send it back to him?
Hey, Florian. Yeah, sorry, I think we have actually hit our wall. I want to thank everyone for joining us one more time. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You can find us, of course, at inorbit.ai on the web and contact us there. Thanks again, everyone, and we really appreciate your time today exploring the developer portal and the InOrbit platform. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.